G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now, a lot has happened with the Airfix Warspite kit since the last video. And look at that. It's starting to really look like a ship now. The wood veneer deck, that's just dry fit. The backing plate's still on it, so it's a bit sort of wobbly in places. Can't glue that on until I cement things together for the hull, but look at the hull. I've basically sanded back a lot of all that red paint and all the rubbish from before. It's got a coat of primer on it. Lots of things have been fixed up. Lots of putty have gone in to fix joins. And look at the casement guns. If you know this kit, that's one of the Achilles heel. Casement guns are rather horrible. And I'll talk about that, talk about the original part. This is all scratch, right? They're metal barrels and scratch casement turrets. And I've also scratched the front here of the superstructure. And I've scratched in here at the stern superstructure. And if you know this kit, you'll know there's a god-awful join there and a god-awful join there. Well, there's a very simple way around it. I will show you that. Not only that, I have scratch built the cranes. I'll show you that as well. So there's a lot that's been going on in the last few weeks while I've sort of been busy with personal matters, as a lot of you already know. Okay, so would you like to see how I scratch built the casements, how I fixed the superstructure, and how I built some really nice cranes very easily? Anybody can do what I have done to this kit, and it lifts it so much. Okay, let's get on with it. Roll the music. Welcome back. Now, I'm going to be using reference plans here. These are from Warspite. I'll put a link up here, but it'll also be in the description. And you can download complete scale plans in both 1/700 and 350. It's pretty easy to rescale them for 600, but I've just printed out the bigger ones just so I get an idea where things are as I'm upgrading the kit. Now, it's well worth getting something like this because it's a great resource because, yeah, the Airfix kit is sort of lacking, and having the diagrams to show you what things should really look like those cranes, is very helpful if you want to upgrade it. Okay, let's get on with this, and the first thing I'll look at is these little casement guns along here, right? Because that's kind of what they should look like. But because of the limitations with the plastic and the problems with the kit, I'll explain to you my solution and how it is not actually 100% accurate, but it gives an optical illusion that it looks a lot more balanced than how the Airfix kit had them. These are the original Airfix parts, and they're pretty god-awful, really. You know, it always was a problem with this kit. It was the best engineering they could probably do. The barrels are moulded on. They are the correct height, and there's a little sort of ring inside the deck that pushes down on that. And so it would make it sort of accurate. But here's the problem. See how thick the deck is? Okay. So if you actually use the correct height of turret, and then a spacer, and then this huge thick deck, they look too thin. It looks all out of proportion. So what I've done is I've used the top of the deck as the thickness of the first spacer at the top. And down here on the bottom of the casement, there's a little spacer, right? I've left that one in there. So I scraped the one off from the underside of the deck. So under here, previously, there were little lumps. And I have taken those off. And they pushed down on those tiny little Airfix parts, and therefore gave it the correct spacing. But the deck is so thick anyway, so it kind of looked ridiculous. So by using the deck thickness as optically sort of my top spacing, and then making my little casement guns slightly taller, but then they fit in nicely and they click nice and hard, and then leave all this down the bottom here, which gives you bottom spacing, they actually look 100% better. At least I think so. Okay, they really start to look the part. And they're much nicer, cleaner, easier to use. And basically there's no cleanup, because what I've done is, rather than have to, clean these god-awful horrible things up, because they are covered, you can see that, they are covered in a seam line and flash and the rest of it, which is, sort of, they weren't even this much better back in the day, and this is a red box, a sort of a bit of a woeful Airfix red box. What you can use is 3mm diameter tube stock. Okay, I've got a whole lot of these there from Evergreen, and they are useful. Got a whole like mixed bag of them. And it just so happens that that fits perfectly over there, and you have the beginnings of a casement. Right? Easy as that. And then for your barrel, well, I had sitting around in some metal barrels I hadn't used. These are actually 1/350 scale, 127mm sort of AA guns, and it's really weird because when I measured the size of them, they weren't far off the thickness, the diameter, and they're certainly too long, but you can always cut them a bit shorter. That's not a problem. So that is what I've used here, and I'll just cut them down to the correct length. But they look the part, and they're hollowed out. There's actually a hollow end because they're turned metal barrels. So they are the duck's nuts, and the beauty is I can bump them a little bit, and they're not going to snap off. All right. So that solves that whole problem. All right, let me show you how simple it is to use these brass barrels and this tube to make up a whole series of casement guns that are going to fit into this part, and the problem is solved. Start off with the tube. Make sure that you've got the end as square as possible. And I just sort of trim it lightly, sand it lightly, and then I test it in the part, because that'll tell you. Put it in the part and you rotate, you'll see if you've got any high spots or low spots, and then just adjust. So as long as it's reasonably right, remember there's not going to be much of an arc that this thing's going to turn. Now, the trick to getting it the right height, place it in the hole, and with your knife level, using the part itself as a former, rotate the tube, and you will score a line all the way around. Then it's very easy to run your knife up to that score line, right? And you can then roll, and the knife will fall into that score line, and then bing, off goes the part, and you have got your tiny little ring. Okay, that's your casement gun ring. And if you've done it right, after a bit of sanding, it will fit perfectly. Make sure it doesn't exceed the height, because you'll have fit issues. Now the metal barrels, yeah, the ones I've got, they're too long. So I measure them, they're about 9 and a bit. I need 7mm. That's what I calculated. That's 6mm to stick out of the little turret ring, and I need 1mm in the turret ring, so I've got something to cement. So, Clecco. Oh, shot the cat. And there we go. That should be, so I've done a few of these, 7 on the money. I mean, even if you're slightly out either way, it doesn't matter, because you can adjust inside. Now, the drill bit needs to be 0.6, because that's how wide that barrel is. Make sure you file the ends where you've trimmed, because if they are not sort of pointing in, you'll never get it in the hole. So yeah, it's always a good idea to file those sort of things off. Now this next bit requires a bit of finesse. You're going to need to drill a tiny little hole in a tiny little ring, and look, it'll wobble all over the place because, you know, it's too difficult. So my trick was put the little ring on my round file that holds it. Okay, I'll just adjust so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. And then I can place my drill bit on there and get it started. Just get that point started, right? Now I can lift it up and making sure I'm perpendicular. Yeah, Elmer Fudd. Perpendicular. Either way, because you don't want your gun barrels that are wobbling the wrong direction. I mean, they did kind of move up. They elevated up and down, so it doesn't matter. There we go. So that is now drilled out and a test fit. Look at that. Bit of a squeeze. I like a tight one. You like a tight one? I like a tight one. There we go. That's going to fit perfectly. So all I need to do now is go and get the glue. So slow zap, CA glue. That's done the job. That thing's cemented up in no time. And here is my finished casement gun with barrel, and look at that, just like I bought one. It fits in. It is going to look perfect. Now the wood decks, I always like to dry fit them first. Leave the backing sort of paper on there, well, plastic, right, that plasticky stuff, leave that on there. You also get a nice little chain with this one, which is good. I'll burnish that so it goes black. Now using a sharp knife, you first gently run along. There's already a pre-cut groove, but it's never cut perfectly. After you've run it along gently, then you can push harder with your second runs, right? One light, a bit harder, and that will cut through the plastic underneath. So light, harder. Don't go hard first because you can bugger the thing. Now the trick here is just to work in small pieces. Don't try and cut it all out at once. So cutting out individual pieces, and this is a nice one to show you. Now see here where, because you've got a sort of circular bit, it's going to be a lot easier just to make sure that's going to separate and cut it out with a straight line. See? And then that'll remove. Now, see, I can flip that little round piece out and then just cut the plastic away. Because remember, I'm doing a dry fit. I just want to make sure that it does fit, because I've had them with problems in that you did have to adjust the wood veneer. It didn't quite match the kit. Best you do it now before you've stuck it on, because often, especially if you don't put down something to help the sticky move, like if you just put it straight on, they stick down hard and they're really hard to peel off. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to stay there forever. That's the whole idea. Cut out the bits in the middle as well. You'll need to do that. Flick out any of the little bumpy bits of the greebles. They usually just pop straight out. See? Easy as that. These ones here are for the lifeboats. Probably don't need to do them now, but seeing as I'm doing this job, do a proper job, do everything, get it all out. Get things as clean as possible. What you can do is those little sort of square greebly things is just put an X in them. Put an X in the plastic, and that means it'll just push that up and they'll pop straight through. All right, let's see how this fits. Goes in there, and it is a perfect fit. Now, another part of this kit that is just woeful, and there's no excuse for it, are these absolutely horrendous joints here on the rear superstructure, and there'll be another one on the forward there. There's no detail, there's just two straight sides. That part's fine, the curve's fine, that comes together quite well. But at the back here, it is just terrible. Anyhow, a little bit of a sand, you can at least get the bottom level and the top level, but there's no way you can fix that. You can sand it, you can do anything, I know from experience. So that is a scratch. That is just gone. And the simple way to fix that, well, I'll show you that in a sec. But here's the front one as well. Look, the guy had actually glued this together before I got the kit, and nothing was lining up, nothing was level. It's horrible. There's not even any detail on that. There's a couple of dimple marks. It's absurd. You just, you wouldn't use it. But what I can do is put a little bit of plastic like this. Now I could put it over the top, but then it's really hard to sand sort of with the sides. You're going to muck out the detail. I found it was actually easy just to cut away very carefully. Like, you've got to be, on your game here. And you simply cut away that front piece, so you don't need it. Okay, so very carefully. Remember, cut less than you need. Don't cut more, because at least then you can come back and you can sand. So with that pretty well removed, there we go. That's the worst of it. There was a bit of a chunk out there. We can putty that up. That's not a problem. And the thing is, I've really cut less than I needed, so I've got a bit of trim room here. You could just put the piece on the end. That'll be fine. Your biggest problem is there's no tolerance back with the deck greebles. There's greebles this thing fits on, and they bump against it. So that wasn't going to be an option for me. I'd have to reduce it back at least the width of the plastic piece I'm putting on. So there you go. That's not really that hard. You just had to be brave. And now that little piece will just fit right on there. After I finish sanding, get on that, Harry. Come on. That's smooth. It's good enough. Come on, you're a bloody perfectionist, mate. All right, so let's find that little piece and we can put it on there. There it is. And that will just sit on there very nicely, and that will make that a perfect join. There we go. Glued it on now. So I'm pretty happy with that. And you see when it goes in, there's greebles there in the way. You've got to be very careful. There's lots of rubbish around there. But that is now a little perfect fit. That solved that problem. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Now the rear section here, pretty easy to do. Measure it out. It's about 15 millimeters wide, about 10 millimeters tall. Okay, so I need a little plate that'll go in there. It just so happens, here's one I made before. So that'll go in there. But the trouble is you've got this big bumpy thing that's bumped out, right? Okay, no worries at all. We could try and measure it and everything, but it's just as easy to form off the part. So holding that flat against there and being very firm so nothing slips, I can make a couple of little indentations here with a knife. Therefore, I know those are the points. Now, how far down? Just under 3 millimeters. All right, I'll cut 3 millimeters. I've oversized my little plate so that I can sand it to shape perfectly. Again, always make things bigger than you need because you can cut them back. Can't go the other way. If you make it too small, it's rooted. Yeah, you have to start again. So, lining that up to my cutting mat as best as I can. I use my cutting mat all the time to try and get things square. It's so hard to do, but at least they're close if you try and run off the lines on your cutting mat. So there is my 2.8 or nearly 3 millimeter line. Okay, and there's my cutouts. A bit wobbly there, Harry. There's my cutouts. Okay, they're both cut out now. Well, they will be. And all you've got to do then is fold that piece and it snaps right out. Does it fit? Does it fit? Yes, it does. And there's a little bit extra on the top there that I can trim off. That's not a problem. We'll take that off there now. And again, lining up to my cutting mat, trying to get a right angle straight edge, a couple of light cuts. All right, I think we've got a part. There we go. That is going to solve that problem completely. What I do need to do is try and smooth things out a bit. So that jutty out piece, I'll sand that and clean it up. Okay. And also that whole back area is just a big wonky mess. So I've got a lot of glue in there to try and make it join together. So we'll just clean all that up. Just the usual stuff, okay? I know you Tamiya builders are just falling over in shock and horror. What? I had to sand something. What? I had to scrape something. Oh, the kit must be rubbish. No, this is modelling like I used to do it. There you go. 2 scratch pieces fixed. The final thing to fix in this video for the Warspite are these cranes. Now, they're okay, well, for their day, right? For the 50s and 60s, this is what they gave you. And it's to scale, sort of. That's kind of how they were. The sides also had, the bracing, but they've just kind of moulded it as a solid piece of plastic. You can paint these up and they can look fine. There's no problem at all there. But I sort of had to think, and instead I made this. What do you think of that? Okay. So that looks, you need to look at a distance. Don't blow it up too big on your screen. That looks more like a crane than that one. All right. At least I think so. It's more in keeping. It's not perfect. I said if we blow it up, you can see there is problems, but it's made out of wire and easy line. And to all intents and purposes, that is a nice looking crane. Sure, you can go out, you can buy the photo etch ones and all the rest of it. They'll cost you a lot of money. I can make this up in minutes and I have a solution. So let me show you how easy it is to make a very simple sort of crane just out of some 0.4mm wire and some thread. I used easy line, but you could do it with anything else that isn't frayed. What the cranes actually do is they triangle up. There's a little sort of triangular shape up and they go across and they come back. So what I managed to do with mine is I bend it up slightly here so that it actually matches photos and gives about the correct thing. Well, I've got some trimming off to do there. Yeah, this one still needs tidying up, but you get the idea. So the distance for that, for my bend, I went about 9mm, 8mm. All right. So again here I need about 8mm. So again, if I line up to my cutting mat, so I will need to bend there. So what I can do is hold these with my tweezers there because I know that's the point they've got to bend. Okay. and then simply, won't be much of a bend. I do not need to bend that much. It's probably too much, but okay, that's the effect. So there you have it. There's my little crane. It's in there. Okay. The eagle-eyed viewer who notices these sort of things will realise my cranes are actually a bit long. Yeah, I realised afterwards I had measured the distance from the back part here, like where the fulcrum is, or this whole housing, to the tip, and I'd use that measurement for the gantry at the front. So they are that width, about 7mm too long. I'll see if I can live with it. If it really starts to bug me, that's a pretty easy section to cut clear. I mean, I'll put plenty of glue in there, and then I'll cut the 7mm off, because that's just a squeezy hand section, and I'll just have to retie those top wires and put the little spool at the back. Not that hard a thing to do. An annoying thing, but we'll see. If I can live with it, I'll live with it. But what the heck, these sort of things happen. I was so busy watching all the other details that I missed a fundamental measurement. And that can happen. So, then the decision is, can you live with it? Does it have to be perfect? No, all I wanted was something that looked more like a crane. I didn't want a blob of plastic. And they look like cranes. So, I might just live with it. Alright, well that is as far as we're going to go in this video. Next time I will show you how we can glue down those decks, set them in place. But before I can do that, I'm going to have to cement the plastic deck in, because there will be a little bit of filling and finagling. So I'll need to get those other guns finished on that side. So there's a lot of chicken and egg stuff in this. You have to get all those casement guns done before you can put the deck on, and then you can work your way up. And that's just how it is with these sort of battleships. The brass pedestals, I'll show you a bit about those next time as well. It's how I've done it in every other video. So really, I'm just repeating myself, but I'll show it for anybody that's missed it. So yeah, I think we've done a lot. Scratch work here, which I'll finish off next time, because I need all the little portholes drilled out through there. And back here I found there's a whole stack of portholes as well, and a few little greebles we can put on. So there's lots more I can add to this to easily make it interesting and featured and just something nice to look at. I don't have to be absolutely perfect. I mean, at this scale, it's never going to happen. The deck is like about 10 foot thick. Nothing is going to be correct. So there are compromises. If my cranes are too long and I don't care, I don't care. Rivet count away. Don't give a shit. Alright, that's it for now. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Really? It helps the algorithm and pushes my videos along. Comment by all means. Just be respectful, you know. Just tell me a joke. Say something nice. Or if you've got a valid criticism, again, just be polite about it. And look, there is a subscribe button. If you do that, you'll get to see my videos all the time. You can hit a little bell. And if you really like what I'm doing, hit the super thanks. Yeah, that sends money straight away so I can feed Bass the cat. And you can also join my Patreons and my YouTube members. And that just helps me out. You know, you give half a shekel a month. Not much, not even the price of a cup of coffee these days. Basically, you'd get a thimble full of petrol. Yes. But it all adds up and it all helps me produce these videos and get them out to you. And I know a lot of you really enjoy them as I enjoy making them for you. All right, that's it for now. It's goodbye from Australia and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.